A player from Germany who happens to have a YouTube channel recently sent me a DM with a 6-minute moonball rally, and he asked me for some advice. So in today's video, I'm gonna teach you how to beat the dreaded moonballer. But first, let me discuss why it's tough to play against moonballers. So when you play someone that sends the ball very high over the net, you are left with options that are going to be difficult if you happen to be at the lower recreational levels or even in juniors. And the options are, you can try to take some of these balls early, which is going to be very difficult. You can try to come to the net. That's also going to be a big challenge. And what most players end up doing is that they wait for the ball to fall in their strike zone. And if the moonball has some penetration, players are going to be pushed behind the court, and when they hit the ball around the waist, they're going to swing low to high, and now players are unwillingly in a nightmare moonball situation where literally you can have rallies that go on for minutes because the moonball in itself is a very high percentage shot. Why? Because you can send it high over the net, you can direct it in a very safe location, and you can make many balls in a row without missing. Now, the absolute nightmare scenario is when two moonballers face each other. This is where matches can go on for 5 hours, rallies can go on for minutes. But most commonly what happens is that a player doesn't want to be stuck in a moonball rally, but is rather forced into it by the opponent. And this is the type of players that I'm dedicating this video to. But let me get this out of the way and discuss whether it's a good tactic to be a moonballer. So I don't advise anyone to employ moonball tactics, and here's the reason why. It will only get you so far. So while this will be a great tactic at the lower recreational levels, maybe even in juniors eventually, you're gonna face opponents who are gonna take your moonballs and gonna smack them back at you for winners. However, if you every now and then put the ball higher over the net with topspin to break the rhythm of your opponent, this is a viable tactic because there's a likelihood that your opponent will give you something weaker in response and you'll be able to take advantage of it. And now let me discuss in more detail why you struggle against moonballers and what you can do to start beating them. So going back to the video I'm referring to from the German player, he was stuck in this rally that lasted 6 minutes. Now the reason why is that most likely there was a lack of trust to take some of these moonballs more aggressively. Maybe even at the subconscious level, players are recognizing that the risk is very high if you play a moonball aggressively. And let's talk about why that's the case. So if you allow a moonball to fall, so it's going to rise, go up to its apex, it's going to start falling down, and if you hit the ball on its way down, generally you're going to be very far behind the baseline and you're going to have to swing low to high on this shot. Now you have to realize that most moonballs do not have a lot of pace on them. So the ball is struck very high. When it bounces into the ground is going to dissipate a lot of its power and the ball is just literally sitting there. So what happens to a lot of players is twofold. They let the ball come down to their waist where they're going to have to swing low to high. And if they attempt to be aggressive and hit the ball harder, they're going to swing a lot faster than they're accustomed to. Why? Because that ball does not have a lot of pace on it. And generally, if you have technical flaws on your strokes, the faster you swing, the more likely you're going to miss the ball. So this, again, could be a subconscious thing where players are well aware of this fact, and that's why they just loop the ball back into play and now are stuck in these endless moonball rallies. Now, there are also some players who beat themselves against moonballers. These are the type of players who attempt to be more aggressive. Maybe they're trying to take the ball on the rise. Maybe they're trying to hit winners off of moonballs. And there are a few problems when players attempt to do this. You have to realize that when you attempt to take a moonball early, the flight path of the ball is very steep. So realize that the ball is going high over the net. It's going to bounce and the ball is going to go up very steeply. So you cannot take that type of ball right off the bounce. You're going to commit a lot of mistakes because when the ball bounces up steeply, you're going to hit it off center or even worse, off the frame. So you're going to have to take it higher. Now, the difficulty lies in the fact that when the ball is rising, it's still going to be somewhat fast and it's going to have a high bounce. So there's going to be a lot of speed on the Moonball in this beginning phase. The ball is going to slow down a lot once it hits the apex and once it starts falling. So taking a Moonball on the rise in this area is something that's very difficult to do. Why? Because the ball is quite fast and timing is very tricky. So what you absolutely must do with Moonballs that have very little penetration, you must hit the ball on its way down. Now, you don't want to let the ball come all the way down to your waist. You do want to strike the Moonball higher. Somewhere between your lower chest and the shoulder is going to be the optimal strike zone to play a Moonball, but you could possibly even play it around your head level. Once you allow that ball to get above your head, now you're going to have a very uncomfortable swing path. Now, why would you want to take these balls higher? Because you want to be able to get a different trajectory on the ball. Remember when I talked about players letting the ball drop to their waist and swinging low to high? When you swing low to high, the ball is going to go up and down. When you take the ball higher, you can change the trajectory and send the ball straight back over to the other side. Don't worry, the gravity will bring the ball back into the court. Or if you're closer in the court, of course, you can even swing down on it. This will depend on your body height and how high you're actually striking the ball. But generally, when you take the ball higher, the swing path is going to be more horizontal. And now you're going to be able to apply more power first of all, and you're going to be able to change the trajectory of the ball and apply more pressure on the Moonballer. Another important aspect of this so crucial timing is the following. So you're going to have to increase your intensity. A lot of players at the recreational level adjust their intensity based on the incoming ball. So a Moonball that's coming at someone is a non-threatening ball. So what you will often see when you observe Moonball rallies is that there's very little intensity. Yes, the players are moving a little bit, but there's not a lot of intensity there. So when you plan ahead of time to be more aggressive on a Moonball, you're going to have to apply more intensity. Even though it's a non-threatening ball, your timing is going to be challenging. Again, you're going to wait for that ball to get to the apex, and you're going to hit it on its way down when the ball slows down a little bit more. And while you're adjusting this so important timing, you're going to have more intensity, you're going to be on your toes, and you're going to load your shots very aggressively. Also, because the ball does not have a lot of pace, you will have to use your body and basically throw your whole body weight into the shot. Another issue with players who are more aggressive with Moonballers is that they have very poor shot selection. So they want to be aggressive, but they try to hit the outright winner from very difficult positions in the court. So this is where shot selection and patience comes into play. These two things are going to be huge if you ever want to beat a Moonballer. So yes, I do want you to be aggressive, but I want you to select very large target. So you are going to go towards the middle of each side. So between the singles line and the middle of the court, right in the middle is going to be your target area, and also right in the middle between the baseline and the service line. That's your general target area. Do not go close to the baseline. Do not attempt to hit the ball close to the line. This is poor shot selection, and you're going to commit a lot of mistakes. So the way you want to think about this is in the following way. Your court positioning is very important. So some players will have a little bit more penetration on their Moonballs than others. But if there's a scenario where you are behind the baseline playing Moonballs, this is where you have to apply very high percentage shot selection. Do not hit the outright winner from here because you can't. You'll do it 1 out of 10 times. So from back here, you're gonna go hard, but you're gonna make your shots. And this is where patience comes into play, because you're gonna do this over and over again until eventually that Moonballer gives you something a little bit shorter where you can get closer into the court and where that winner becomes a lot easier. Now, how about coming to the net? This is another way players mess up when they play Moonballers, because they hit a ball from behind the baseline and they come to the net, and now they have too much ground to cover and they have very difficult transition volleys to pull off. So what you gotta do is, again, be very patient from back here. Wait until you get something around the half court. Use that shot as your approach shot, then follow that shot into the net, and ideally clean up with a put away volley or an overhead. So if your opponent hits moonballs that are landing shorter in the court, not only can you do an approach shot and follow that into the net, you could also take a swing volley, but you have to practice the swing volley. It is one of the least practiced shots in tennis. Don't try swing volleys in a match. If you haven't practiced them, you're going to commit a lot of mistakes. So yes, the swing volley is absolutely a viable tactic against moonballers, but only if you get your reps in practice. Now, how about high backhands? Well, this is easily avoidable because the moonball does not have a lot of pace. And this is where your fitness comes into play. You're going to have to be fit. You're going to have good endurance because you're going to try to run around as many backhands as possible. You can absolutely do that because the moonball gives you a lot of time and you don't really have to hit backhands. Now, there are going to be some moonballers who are very crafty and can get very good angles, and they are going to be able to hit high balls to your backhand. And this happens to be one of the most difficult shots in tennis. That's also one of the least practiced shots in tennis. So most players like to take the ball around the waist and they are uncomfortable taking the ball higher. This is something that you absolutely must practice on a daily basis on both your forehand side or your backhand side. If you don't, you're not going to be able to execute the instructions that I'm giving you in this video. When it comes to the two-handed backhand, it's a little bit easier to play moonballs because we have the help of the non-dominant arm. And in fact, this type of two-handed backhand is going to be more left arm dominant for right-handed players. The swing path on a two-handed backhand is very similar to a forehand. It's going to be either a horizontal swing path, or if you're closer to the net and hitting the ball higher, it can even be a downward swing path. And both of these cases is going to be a shot that's more dominated with the left arm for right-handed players, and it's also okay on this specific shot to have a right elbow position that's a little bit more tucked in. When it comes to the one-handed backhand, and I'm going to make a full-length video on this, you are not going to be able to go across the body in a horizontal way. This is a movement that feels very weak and uncomfortable. You also are not going to be able to go down with your one-handed backhand. It's just a very weak movement biomechanically speaking. So high one-handed backhands have to be struck with topspin with a low to high swing path. So even one-handed backhands that are struck around the head level, you still have to come from below the ball, hit the ball up higher, and finish upwards in a low to high swing path. But again, there's going to be full-length tutorials coming out on how to hit a high one-handed backhand and how to hit a high two-handed backhand. And let me finish off this video with something that's very difficult to do against really good moonballers, those that have a lot of penetration on their shots. Yes, it's going to be tough against these type of players because, again, taking the ball early is going to be very challenging, and also waiting for the ball to drop is also going to provide challenges because more penetration means that you're going to be pushed further back. And two things that you absolutely have to avoid when you play these really tough moonballers that have a lot of spin and some pretty good pace on their moonballs is, number one, you don't want to hit the ball above your head, because from here the swing path, as I already said, is going to be very uncomfortable. But more importantly, you never ever want to get into a situation where the ball gets behind you, because from here the only thing you can do is basically tap the ball back into play this way. So at all costs, you have to keep your body behind the ball. Now, this is going to require a lot of footwork, a lot of intensity, and most importantly, good ball recognition. So when you play against these type of players, you're just going to have to try to stay in the rally as long as possible and put quality balls back in play. If your positioning is not good, you might not be able to put so much pressure on them. But again, if you work really hard, you're going to get your looks where you indeed can unload your whole body into the shot and get a little bit different trajectory on the ball and start putting more pressure on your opponent, where they hopefully start giving you shorter balls that are even more attackable and that you can possibly convert into winners.